Here we got Ben from B&G Sports, a retailer of BMC, and what other brands do you guys do?
Merida bikes.
Merida?
Road, yep. And then mountain bike we do Norco, Merida, and also Mondragon.
Up in Townsville? Yeah, long way north of where we are now. So these guys have come down for a bit of a holiday to see me, and we've already seen Glenda, who you might have seen in some of our previous videos. Ben's got a bit more of an interesting scenario. Ben's been to see Steve Hogg, an old mentor of mine from a long time ago. 22 years ago or 21 years ago, we think we saw Steve. Yeah. And Steve diagnosed him with a significantly shorter left leg, and he's still got a significant shim stack underneath the left shoe that he's going to show us now on the bike what he looks like. We've had a bit of a look at Ben off the bike. Ben definitely looks like he's got a shorter leg, but I'm not sure if it's 9 mil, so there might be something that needs to be tweaked here. Yep. It's getting some small one-sided symptoms, a little bit of right-sided saddle sores and that sort of thing. So we'll see if we can spot the asymmetry that's causing you trouble and come up with a better solution. Bodies change in 21 years, so it's very, very likely that we'll need to retweak this. Got this beautiful red BMC SLR01 behind me on the kicker, which we've had to mount up on the trainer. So we've got that all done. Let's have a look at how you pedal, Ben.
I reckon my hammies are shortened so much.
So fuck it, something's happened. Yeah,
because that's the measurement that I got from Steve originally.
Yeah, because Steve is pretty conservative with his seat heights, like I am, and that's like 20 mil over. Yeah, wow, no wonder you're having problems. So this is a great example of seat height problems, to put it mildly. So Ben's been fitted a long time ago, 20 plus years ago, and his body's obviously changed quite a lot. He has replicated the seat height from Steve's old fit, but this is a different bike, different shoes, 21 years down the track, things have changed. So you can see his left leg at the bottom of the stroke is having a lot of trouble controlling the movement. This may show up on the footage and it may not. Seat height issues like this often don't show up on footage very well, which is one of the reasons I don't do online fittings, I'm sorry to say, because determining seat height based off video footage is always problematic. But you can see his left leg at the bottom of the stroke is having a lot of trouble controlling the movement. As he comes down through the bottom section of the stroke, he has to toe the pedal really aggressively just to try and subconsciously make his leg longer, but it's not enough. Even with that, his leg flickers quite badly at the bottom of the stroke and loses control. And as it loses control, he compensates a little bit. Now, he's a pretty good compensator, so his issues in terms of the rest of the pedal stroke are not that bad. He's reasonably stable through the back. He just differentially extends his right leg because of the shim being slightly too large. And there's a couple of other small things, but Ben is a very good compensator. So he's dealing with this much better than I would deal with it, or most people would deal with it, which is why he hasn't really noticed it that much. So his seat, I'm guessing, is somewhere between 10 and 20 millimeters too high at this junction. It may be as much as 25, but we're going to measure his cleat position and have a look at all that now. And depending upon where we set his cleat position, his seat height will come down some amount between 10 and 25 millimeters. And that's going to solve a lot of your problems, Ben. So your foot size discrepancy is the same as Glenda's, but larger. So your right foot is longer than your left. The toe, I don't know, 3 or 4 millimeters. The metatarsal joint line is a full 5 millimeters staggered. Yeah, so it's quite a decent discrepancy. So this is another reason why we might want to consider staggering your cleat position. Now this is going to be the longer femur. So a little bit of conceptualization here. If your leg's going round and round like this and your femur is shorter on one side, on this side, let's say it's shorter on the left, the main thing that happens with the pedal stroke is the knee moves back because of the shorter femur, right?
So I sit.
You're not always. So if this is your femur and this is your tibia and it's doing this, if we keep everything the same but we shorten the femur, the knee moves towards the back of the bike primarily. Now at the bottom of the stroke, yes, it does move up away from the crank center a little bit, but it mainly moves back. If the discrepancy is in the tibia, it mainly moves the knee up or down relative to the crank center, right? Yep. So tibial discrepancies will affect your leg length vertically more than femoral leg length discrepancies, which will mainly affect the effective seat setback. So one of them affects the seat height and the other one affects the seat setback, and they have a little bit of overflow into the other category as well. So in a situation like this, longer foot on this side, if this is the longer femur, your knee, is going to move forwards. It's going to close the knee angle down for a given seat setback. If we push your right cleat forward on the shoe, it's going to push your foot back which is going to exacerbate the problem. The closure of the knee angle will get even deeper.
Yep.
And so we may consider doing something quite strange here, which is actually like running the right cleat further behind the left one, even though you've got a longer right foot.
Yep.
It's like a big three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle. So we're going to try all these combinations, because in half the people that you do this with, half of them will need the cleat forward of the other one because of the foot size difference, and then we deal with the leg length difference with shims, and half of them will need to do the opposite. So you can imagine if the femur is short on this side, the knee gets pulled back, you're increasing the seat setback. One of the ways of fixing that problem is to push the foot back under the knee by moving this cleat forward.
Yeah.
So you do the exact opposite thing to what you'd expect with the foot size discrepancy. So this is kind of, this could go either way, but these are all the things that we've got to try, given how unusual this pattern is, with a significantly longer right foot and a significantly longer right leg. This is where they get a bit complex. You're a good one, Ben. So let's try you with, let's try you with 3, and then we'll try a couple of different iterations of cleat stagger. So does this mean that you've gotten shorter in the last 20 years, Ben?
Well, I reckon.
Yeah, it's quite possible. This is going to make a horrible noise again. 15 millimeters. Now this maybe this will be slightly low, but we'll start low and work our way back up. So what we're going to do is basically throw you on and do nothing for 5 minutes, and then come back and check the seat height again, because the body does a bucket load of adapting in the first couple of minutes after you make a big seat height change. So that's pretty close. We won't try and get it any tighter than that straight off the bat. We'll just wait a bit, let you adapt.
Definitely feels lower.
Yeah. It's only a 2 centimetre change. I'd be worried if you couldn't feel it.
But I feel smoother through the bottom end of my pedal stroke straight away.
Yeah. I just think you're what I call a hyper adapter, Ben. You've just been really good at dealing with it for ages, so you haven't really suspected how high it was. You're too athletic. We're at 24 mil lower now, which is quite substantial.
I actually just feel more control on the pedal stroke.
Yeah. I'm not so sure about staggering the cleat that way though. Your right glute is going mental. Yeah, it skews your foot angles as well. So that's a prime example of something that you think, well, maybe that'll help, maybe not. You test it and it doesn't work out. Like from the right, it looks totally fine because that's your dominant leg. That's the one you're protecting. But you can see when we look at you from the front, the left heel is just starting to drift in a little bit towards the bike. The right glute, when we dig our thumbs into your glute max, your right glute is working overtime.
Yep.
Something is going on that is creating worse symmetry. And it hasn't helped at all with the control of this left leg across the bottom of the stroke. So let's do the exact opposite.
I actually feel like I'm sitting more forward like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So as you go forward on the right, your right heel will turn out and your left heel will turn in.
Yep.
So you can just sense the same thing that I can see. So yeah, that's a no-go. So this is where it gets complex because you've got a longer right foot. So you would think that staggering the cleat forward for the right foot, as we did with Glenda, is actually going to be helpful, right? But because of the complexity of this asymmetry where you've got a femoral leg length difference tied into this as well, it gets a bit skew-if. You've basically got to trial all of these things and see what works the best. And in your case, that does not work. That's the best I've seen you. You might need even more stagger than that. We better try it. All right, so that's what it needed. It just needed that extra 3 mil because now suddenly the heel is dropping more normally. The knee extension looks relatively controlled. That looks substantially better from the left. Let's have a look from above. Still good. Nice even glute engagement. Okay, so now it's becoming difficult to tell the difference between the two sides, which is what we want. The best metrics for high level symmetry Good planarity of the pelvis bend, so having your pelvis square to the bike, and even glute engagement. If both of your glute maxes are firing evenly and there's no drop on one side of the pelvis as you apply force to the pedal or anything like that, everything's pretty much happy.
Yep.
Looks really good. It's a strange combination, but it works. We'll make him sit on about high 200s. Oh, he's killing it here. We'll hold it at 300-ish. Smashing it. All right, let's have a look and see if it holds up under load. It doesn't even need a sweat towel. This is what an elite athlete looks like. Take it, Ben, take it. The seat's still got to come down another couple of mil, because under heavy load, you just, like everyone, you just drop your heels a smidge. Stay there, but stand up and relax. So this is going to be a neat 30 mil drop. So I don't know what happened to that old seat height measurement, but I'll be really interested to see what we measure it at and what Steve measures it at. And if they are actually, you know, 30 mil off over the course of 20 years, it's just a testament to how much a person's body can change in 30 years. You see how each time I move it, it feels smooth again for a few minutes?
Yeah.
And then it goes choppy? Yeah, that's your hamstrings kind of being like, oh, I've got control again. And then after a while, they just adapt to that, and then it just needs to be slightly lower again. That's nice and smooth, nice and controlled. So that's the before and after, 30 millimeters of seat height change. Hopefully you can actually see that in the footage, but he's actually got reasonable control across the bottom of the stroke on both legs now. That's a normal looking pedal stroke. And I always say to people, if we can make you look normal, we're fairly happy. Normality is one of our goals. It's got nice, smooth control across the bottom of the stroke, beautifully symmetrical. So I think we're going to end up with a 6 millimeter shim and about a 6 millimeter or 7 millimeter stagger in the cleat position, mate. Is your left hammy holding up? Good. You can ease off again. Oh, he's smashing it. He's increasing his wattage. Oh, bloody hell. Because your seat has come down 3 centimeters, we've effectively raised the bars.
Yeah, I feel tall.
Yeah, so it feels really easy to get there now. But if we delete this, we're back down with a 20 millimeter discrepancy and drop to what we had. So the bar is still going to be 2 centimeters higher than it was when you came in. So it's going to be way easier to get down there than it was before, but you can actually slam it. Yep. Yeah. So there's a number of performance advantages here which we're not even thinking about. Yes, your pedal stroke will be more efficient, smoother, more controlled, more symmetrical, all of that kind of stuff. But one of the real big ones, which is very hard to measure, is the aerodynamic gain from the seat being 3 centimeters lower and the bar being 10 mil lower. Everything's kind of compacted down. So at high speed on the flats, you're going to be a little bit more punchy through the wind. You're going to be
a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is, you know, if you had to quantify this, the aerodynamic advantage alone will be worth the lower seat height. But then there's all the extra pedal stroke efficiency from the lower seat height as well. So yeah, it'll be good, man. It'll be nice. This looks really neat. This is one of those situations where the next bike should be a 56.
Yep.
Because we know that you tolerate without any great trouble another 30 mil of drop. So that when the seat was 30 mil higher, you didn't have any trouble with how low the front was. Yep. We've come down 3 centimeters. We can only drop it another 10. If we went down to a 56, we'd have another 15 millimeters of stack to play with downwards. Just run a slightly longer stem. No problem. There's a lot of advantages to smaller frames too that you don't think about. They sort of, because all the triangles are smaller, they flex less for a given amount of carbon. You know, you imagine a frame scaled right up to this big with a certain amount of carbon, it's going to be more flexible because all the tubes are longer, you know. So the smaller they get, the more nimble and agile they feel and the less they flex, and they're lighter.
Yep.
There's also something nicely psychological like that happens when you're on a really small, nimble, sharp handling bike. It kind of feels like a racier thing.
Responsive.
Yeah, more responsive is a good word. So yeah, 56 next time.
Yeah, righto. For sale.
Okay, guys, so the solution that we've come up with here for Ben's asymmetry, Ben actually had a leg length discrepancy which he could show us on an X-ray film that he had taken of his legs a few years ago, was it? A few years ago, which showed that most of his discrepancy was in his femur. So his left femur is substantially shorter than his right. The X-ray suggested up to 10 millimetres or 9 or 10 millimetres, which is more than what I gave it credit for. But on the bike, that's exactly how it panned out as well. We ended up using a combination of things, which was a bit unusual. There's a 6 millimetre shim underneath his left shoe, so that's accommodating for the structural length of the leg overall, but then there's also a 6 millimetre stagger in his cleat position, so we've pushed his left cleat forward on the shoe. Now the net effect of that primarily is that as the cleat goes forward on the shoe, his foot moves back towards the back of the bike, and that has an effect of helping people deal with shorter femurs on one side by closing the knee angle back down. The knee angle would otherwise be opened up and the hamstring would have more trouble controlling the bottom of the stroke with the shorter femur if we didn't do this. So this has worked really well for you. This does not work very well for a lot of people when you stagger the cleat this much, particularly combined with the fact that his foot is shorter on this side. So the foot's actually sitting further back in the shoe, but we've moved the cleat forward again. So there's probably, relative to your foot, around a 12 millimetre discrepancy in the placement of the cleats, which is enormous. Thankfully, it actually felt really good to you and it looked really good to me. So we're going to run this for a while and see how it pans out. It does look at the moment like an excellent solution, but time will tell. I've told Ben to keep an eye out for any issues with his Achilles on this side or any awkward asymmetry which comes on as he adapts to this. But yeah, hopefully it's going to work really well. So there was an enormous seat height change as well. I think we came down 3 centimetres, which is going to be interesting for you to adapt to. And next time we're going to go for a 56 in the BMC, just to get you lower in the front end, because you don't need all that stack height as it turns out.
Yep.
So for a guy who's 6'1", he's 5 inches taller than me in the old money. Seat height's only 5 millimetres higher than mine. Just gives you an idea of how different people can be, or sorry, how similar people's positions can be with quite different bodies. Yeah.
Yep.
So there you go. Hopefully that was of interest.